you're just sort of anti-fun, or you're looking for a cheap applause line, a cheap pop from the crowd, like Mark Zuckerberg, who to me is way less cool. A couple of weeks ago, there was a ton of discussion and debate about whether or not Nickelback sounded like Load Era Metallica, talking about their albums Load and Reload, respectively. Arguably, Metallica's biggest take on commercial radio rock and their bid to appear on radio rock everywhere. It worked for them, and it was a successful formula, and was one of their last albums working with famed producer Bob Rock. Saint Anger would be their last. So on a recent podcast, All That Remains vocalist Phil Labonte compared Nickelback to Load Era Metallica. He said that many of the songs you could hear on All the Right Reasons for Nickelback could certainly have been on a Metallica Load or Reload album. He said, I want to point out one thing about Nickelback that I think a lot of people know, but they don't realize they know it. Nickelback records are Metallica Load and Reload sonically. Almost any of the Nickelback songs could go on Load or Reload, and almost any of the songs on Load or Reload could go on a Nickelback record. He added, sonically, those albums are very, very close. At the same time, at least, there were pinnacle of audio quality when it comes to production. There's not records that sound better than those that came out in the same era, and those songs are all phenomenally crafted songs. I tend to agree. I believe that this doesn't mean that we're saying that Nickelback is just like our precious Master of Puppets era Metallica. We're not saying that. We're just saying that during those two records, Metallica was directly writing sort of formulaic, well-crafted rock songs for radio. I love them. I love those albums. I don't think they're my favorite Metallica records, but I love them. And I know this is going to be super unpopular, but I also think that the hate that Nickelback has gotten from time to time has been super unfair. I think that when people are overexposed to something and it's on the radio all day long, you're naturally going to want to be a contrarian and shit on it. If this is something that the public at large seems to enjoy, then does it separate me from the rest of the pack if I come out and I dump all over it? There are really a lot of sad people out there who feel the need that they must always hate what the people at large must like. Sometimes the people at large are very wrong about things, but I really question how a band can sell 50 plus million albums and suddenly there are all these different people that hate them. I also think that some people hate Nickelback's fans. They hate middle American fans and they don't like them. They think they're trashy, and that is why for some reason they instill this hate on Nickelback, and I think both of those things are totally false. So, Nickelback bassist Mike Kroger was on 95.5 KLOS, and he was asked about this quote from Labonte, and he felt it was an honor to be compared to Load Era Metallica, and he seemingly agreed. He was also asked about why so many people tend to hate on Nickelback. He said, it just seems to be, I think, one of those cases where familiarity breeds contempt. The thing didn't come out of nowhere, so I feel that's probably what it is. People became so familiar, or felt like they became so familiar with our band, that they had to start throwing shade at it, I guess. Everybody knows from our time that this happened to Bon Jovi at the highest part of their career. It happened to Metallica at the highest point of their career, so I guess it's a good sign. When we first got started, we were kind of surprised when people liked it. We're always have a more blue-collar way of looking at this whole thing when is just do our work and not worry about what everybody else is saying and just keep focused on the goal, whether it was on tour or making a record, whatever it was. And we never really listened to what people said, positive or negative. I think you've got to be wary of your critics, but I think you've got to be more wary of what your lovers are saying, because if you read too much of your own press, you can turn yourself into an idiot. It's nice to have people say nice things about you, but you got to temper it all and not drink too much of your own Kool-Aid, he added. And I want to point out here that Limp Bizkit, they sold over 50 million albums, I believe. Korn sold millions and millions of albums, and there was this time period after all that success. There were tens of millions of fans of that type of music, and then out of nowhere, people began really jumping on the Limp Bizkit hate train. People began jumping on the Korn hate train, and that's not to say that they didn't have haters to begin with, but it really became amplified as people moved towards different directions. Society moved in a different direction away from the nu metal sound, and it was easy to look back and say, ha, I was never into that, I didn't listen to that, and make yourself seem cool. But you got to ask yourself, then who were the people that were buying those records? But Nickelback has really never done anything that outright makes them deserving of the hate they get. They've had moments where they've got aggravated with fans on stage pelting rocks at them and flipped off the crowd. Seems like a personally reasonable response to me. But when that underscores the rock star douchebag, I'm not calling him a douchebag, but when that is sort of the label that they're placing on these guys, it's easy to take something like that, amplify it, and make it fit the narrative that you want it to fit. My own personal narrative is this. Nickelback is a band that is connected with hundreds of millions of fans around the world. And to this day, millions and millions of people still value their music and like the band. And so if you're shitting on a band that's never really harmed anybody, makes their own music, and you've turned them into this giant mockery, I think that you're just sort of anti-fun, or you're looking for a cheap applause line, a cheap pop from the crowd, like Mark Zuckerberg, who to me is way less cool than any member of Nickelback, trying to insert this joke into his commercial that was written by $50 million speechwriters.
Play us some good Nickelback songs.
I'm sorry, Mark. I'm afraid I can't do that. There are no good Nickelback songs.
Good. That was actually a test. Okay.
In my book, Mark Zuckerberg sucks, and I like Nickelback music. I don't like all of it. I don't have to. Even my favorite band in the world, I don't have to love every song they wrote, and I don't. Some rock music can be about drinking a beer in your backyard, putting the race on, and having a good time, baby. So anyways, you guys can make up your own mind. As always, I respect your opinions, and I hope you respect mine as well. Thanks for joining Rockfeed. Please subscribe with notifications on, and also consider memberships. Thank you to the top Rockfeed members featured here. I got to update my list this week. You can check us out behind the scenes content. I also do band reviews, and I will also post a weekly Q&A. I still haven't done it yet because we haven't gotten enough questions. I think I got 3 this week. I need you guys to give me those good questions. Anyways, thanks again for joining us, and we'll see you all very soon.